just want to make sure that you're not feeding into it at all. So anytime she's doing that, we want to set the boundaries for those things, but we also want to make sure we're being very mindful of how much we're reinforcing that behavior. Because a lot of times we unintentionally, when the dogs do that, pet them or talk to them or do things like that, okay, which just in her mind solidifies that, oh, that worked, it got me attention. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and start cruising on stuff. So obviously you've already started with the pinch collar, right? So we don't have to do a ton of work with it, but we are gonna go through just the basic introduction of the pinch collar. Just make sure that she understands it clearly so we could start jumping into the e-collar training at that point. And depending on how she does with stuff today, we may or may not do a ton with the e-collar itself, right? Now in the house, since we talked last, what's been kind of your routines with her? Has she been around any new people or anything, or? Should I have both of you answer? Yeah.
Yes, she has been around with people. So
okay.
For the holidays, we had people around. She did okay. Like when his family came over, they're not as much dog people.
Yeah.
So we had the prong collar on her, the leash, and I hooked the leash to the foot of the couch, which clearly she could pull if she wanted to.
Sure.
She laid on her bed. She sat there. She was fine. She didn't.
Did everybody kind of leave her alone when she was there?
Yeah. But she was right, next to the kitchen, so she wasn't completely excluded. But she wasn't trying to get into anybody's business. She was fine, like just being there. I'm trying to think when we had my family. No, that would have been Thanksgiving. That was before Lynn. And then my son had a few friends over, and we told them absolutely nobody is allowed on the main floor.
Yeah.
Because they can go through the basement.
Sure. Is that because that's where she was?
Yeah.
Yeah. Gotcha.
They're 19, 20-year-old kids are gonna come in.
Yeah.
They love our dogs.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
you came in the house, and you saw
Because they don't listen. They come right through the door. I'm sitting on the couch. I jump up, go over there, and she just got right in Jack. She got right in Jack, and she's just like up in, kind of.
Yeah.
Pushing. And then he did the same thing. He pulled the hand back, and I'm like, watch out. And I'm like, she did the same thing. She just she didn't bite him, but she put his hand, hurt his hand.
Well, the good thing is that, she does it to you also, like you were saying with the mouthiness and stuff, so we could address it with somebody where it's a little bit safer initially, obviously. Yeah. You could be the guinea pig in this, obviously.
See, that's what I wanted you to do.
Yeah.
Your thing.
Yeah. No, we'll do that too. And for what we'll definitely do at least one of the sessions where I come out to the house and make sure obviously we simulate that kind of stuff. But when you had people actually come in, did you, like you said, you tethered her off to the couch, did you do that like initially prior to the people coming in, or did you wait until they were in before you did that?
They were in, because I did it after that.
Yeah.
And how did she react?
Yeah.
So you were holding her, people came in.
And if I'll sit there with, like, if people are coming in,
Yeah.
if I've got little trees broken in pieces and I'm like, sit, bed,
Yep.
it's like, those people don't even matter.
Sure.
But then so I think it's, if they just come in and she's got nothing to do other than there's new people there,
Yeah.
I'm gonna bum her.
Yeah. I gotcha. And when they came in, I know you said you were kind of keeping her focused and stuff. Was she reactive to the people coming in or anything?
Not really.
Okay, good.
No, she can be completely calm, especially if
Yeah.
we have that on her. Like, we wouldn't even have to hold it. She's a different dog
Good.
than she is when
Sure.
she's loose.
Well, right now it's all about patterning in the behaviors we want, So like, though that's not the end all be all solution for things, we want to make sure if you know that works and hey, we put the prong on, we put the leash on, you keep her under control when people are coming in, nobody messes with her or anything, but you could have a successful encounter and you stack that a bunch of times, she's going to get more and more confident with people coming into the house. Then we translate that to, okay, we've got the e-collar training established, we've got a bed stay established, we could then do that when people come in, same deal, building on success. Then you start moving into the actual interactions with things. So yeah, if that's working, do that every time. Predictability is everything with dogs like her. So we want to have a routine that we could make sure every single time somebody comes into the house, this routine happens, it works this way, she has a successful encounter. Anyways, I'm gonna start getting cruising on stuff. Let me grab those treats over here. And like I said, we're just gonna do some really basic prong collar introduction stuff. I know she's wearing it already, but we're just gonna make sure she understands it in conjunction with her commands. Now I also put this on much snugger, and obviously we want to make sure it's high on the neck. The higher up on the neck, the more sensitive the neck is, so it works a little bit more easily, obviously. So I'm just gonna be walking around, and when I lose her, I'm just gonna apply a little bit of pressure, change direction, and make sure she's understanding when she feels it to start moving towards me.
So we have to say, when we got her, we felt she was an amazing walker.
Sure.
For not knowing if she had any training.
Yeah.
You know, it's still there's something else.
Yeah.
She doesn't sniff by mom, she doesn't eat food by mom, like,
Yeah.
and I love that for my dog.
Sure. You said Pearl's 9 now?
Yeah.
Man. How old was she when she did her training?
I think she was like maybe 1 at that.
Yeah. Pretty young, I think.
Yeah, we did her young.
Crazy.
I thought about bringing her this.
We'll add her in at least to one of the sessions, because anytime you have multiple dogs, it's, you know, they feed off each other to some extent. So obviously she's already doing a great job of sticking with me, so clearly she's kind of getting the game, which is good. So I'll do just a little bit more of this, and then we'll add in some sits and some beds.
Well, I have to say we were impressed with her boarding because they had her on the bed.
Yeah.
They were working with her on stuff, so.
Yeah. Well, that was the big thing. Anytime we have a dog coming in like her, who we know, you know, potential of a bite, things like that, we always want to make sure we kind of keep them as stimulated as possible. And then the other big thing was right off the rip, we made sure she understood jumping and mouthing was not acceptable here. So that was why we put the e-collar on, so we at least were able to address those two things.
Yeah.
And that helped her realize just, okay, there's rules, right? All right. Good.
I have to say she sits more than any game we've ever had.
More, you said? Yeah.
Most of them I can stand her right down, but she'll sit.
Yeah. Have you had Danes before? Yeah. Okay. So obviously this isn't so much about the sit command as much as it is teaching her the pressure, right? So I'm stopping, applying a little bit of pressure up, and I want her to understand that that pressure, anytime she feels it, means to do something. Good. Okay. Good. Okay. So treat fanatic. There we go. Good. Okay. So that time you see was the first one. She felt it and pretty much right away put herself into the sit, showing she's kind of getting the game. Good. Same deal. Okay. A couple more of those. So this training thing isn't so bad. Good.
And she does
Okay.
sit in your face.
Yeah, she gets very close.
Yeah,
No personal space.
that's something.
Good.
Try to figure out how to address too, because if you're sitting there,
Yeah, yeah.
you want to just
Okay.
be watching the TV or something, go over with and just the nose on the hand.
Just right in your face.
And she'll flip it up and put the jam in there, and next thing you know, she's up here on your chest with her head,
Yeah.
which is okay sometimes.
Good. Yeah, there's definitely ways to work through that. Okay. My one dog is a very similar, like he has no personal space boundaries. And you know, we've kind of combated that by setting rules for particular things. So for example, good. You know, he's not allowed, like he could, like if he comes and sits close to me, he's not really doing anything wrong, but if he mouths at your hand, if he goes and does the like, I'm gonna put one paw on you, then two paws on you, right? Like that's something that we don't allow him to do. He used to be really bad about, if you were sitting there and you had your hand like sitting on your lap or something, you just jam his nose under your hand, right? Kind of demanding the attention. Like he's learned that that is a boundary that he's not allowed to do. So we want to make sure, we want to make sure that we're creating boundaries for those things, which isn't going to stop him being like a, for better choice of words, like attention whore, but like it does make it slightly less annoying. And then past that, good. You just want to make sure that you're not feeding into it at all. So anytime she's doing that, we want to set the boundaries for those things, but we also want to make sure we're being very mindful of how much we're reinforcing that behavior. Because a lot of times we unintentionally, when the dogs do that, pet them or talk to them or do things like that, which just in her mind solidifies that, oh, that worked, it got me attention.
She used to stick to Doug. If he was in his office,
Yeah.
she was in there. Now she'll lay in the family room
Good.
when he's in his office. And she doesn't have to be in
Yep.
the same room with him.
Yeah.
So I do think that's positive, but
Sure.
like I said, that's turned into her that.
Yeah, it's a balancing act. I think you mentioned when you first got her, like it was like, oh my God, she's so good. But a lot of times that's because you could tell her default is she's a nervous dog. Like when I first took the leash from you, her tail was kind of tucked. She was like very stiff, you know? And, you know, initially that'll look like to us, like our dog is perfect, right? They're just calm all the time, but we're not recognizing that calmness is really insecurity. So as they start to become more confident, you'll see them become like emboldened to act in particular ways when they are fearful, right? So I'm fearful, but now I'm confident to express myself when I'm fearful, right? Or, you know, I'm fearful and, you know, I expressed myself in this way, there was a consequence for it, and then I learned a new coping mechanism for it, right? So obviously that's what we want to start doing now, is as her fear turns into certain inappropriate behaviors, we create boundaries for those things, which forces her to find new coping mechanisms for them, which are more appropriate. And usually that winds up being like creating some space. Come on, butt down. There we go. Creating some space, or you know, going into another room or things like that. You're antsy now. Butt down. There we go. And obviously as we're working with her, we're seeing kind of the antsiness come out a little bit. So I'm just patiently working her past that. Gotta stay in the sit until you're released. Okay, there we go. Good. Okay. Good. Okay. All right, so next what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna introduce the bed. Real easy. Kind of walk her over, guide her up on. Good. Pop her into a sit. Okay. We'll do that one a few times. Good. Okay. Good. You're doing pretty good. Okay. 2 more. You're good. So a little extra distraction here, obviously. Good. I know. Everybody loves a golden retriever puppy. Good. There's just something about them. Okay. said, puppies. I love puppies. Good.
So when she was here, I saw one picture with her and the dog that was next to her
Okay.
in the kennel things.
Yep.
Like out.
Mm-hmm.
Did she do good with any other dogs, or was that the only one?
No, we had a couple. So the stay that she was with us, we had a period of time where we had like 2 Great Danes and like an Irish Wolfhound, and I think we had a Mastiff also. Okay.
There was one, yeah, the Solomon or something?
Yes. Yeah. Uh-huh. So we paired her off with the big dogs, and she did fine with them. Come on, all the way. Good. Okay, 2 more. Good. Okay, treat overload today. So what I want you to do is you're gonna keep her on your left. I wanna see you kind of do some laps around the room here. We'll start with some heeling. Once that looks good, we're gonna do those sits. Once those look good, we will do the beds. And with all of these, we're not doing any verbal commands for it. We're simply just using the leash to communicate all of this to her.
She drops off with just a little.
Yeah, but honestly, you don't have to be even so strict on it. Yeah, you could just kind of walk around, and the goal is that she follows you organically and that we're not needing to use very many tugs. So save the tugs for when she like commits to leaving you, right? So if you feel like, okay, she is clearly like right there going for that door, or clearly trying to get ahead towards something, communicate that way. But I don't want you to be like overly nitpicky before she's even made the mistake. Perfect. All right, so whenever you want, you could start adding some sits in. Again, you're just gonna come to a stop, a little bit of steady pressure up on the leash, and then once her butt hits the ground, release all that pressure. Perfect. And then you can give her a reward for that if you want to.
She doesn't even care if it's food from God.
Yeah. And then before you start walking, you could tell her okay, just to release her from that position. And then you'll just periodically add some of those in now.
Make any suggestions you have
With her?
on how to have her tell us when she needs to go out.
Yep. You're talking with her, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
like Pearl, we were able to teach to ring a bell.
Yep.
And right now we don't have the bell, but it's fine with Pearl. You know,
Yeah.
she'll walk to the door and look at us and, basically tell us. This
Yep.
one, I think sometimes she tells us, sometimes she doesn't. We just take her out, but she has had accidents in the house, but,
How consistently does she have them?
well, she had she went like 2 or 3 weeks with none, and then she has 2 in 2 days.
Yeah.
And then she'll go again for a while with none.
And what's in those 2 days that she had them, what is the pattern? Like, is it like, were you guys distracted for a couple hours doing something, or?
I think she was trying to tell me
Yeah.
that she had to go out.
Yes.
And I thought she just wanted attention.
Yes.
And that's what I can't distinguish. So what
Yeah.
we're trying to do is if you come and put that face on me,
Mm-hmm.
that means you're going outside.
Yeah, well that's exactly it, right? So how we get to a place where our dog consistently lets us know when they need to go to the bathroom is by making sure, first and foremost, we don't even worry about them telling us they need to go out to the bathroom. We just make it such a strong ingrained habit that this is the place you go, that the first thing that's gonna happen is in their mind, going inside is gonna become just not an option, right? Once they hit that point, then we start worrying about how we want them to tell us. And you pick something, like you just said, like putting the head on you. Sure, you could make that the cue that every time she does that, she goes outside. And in her mind, she will start to correlate that, right? Or sometimes we'll notice dogs like unintentionally will start pacing around by where the door is, right? The second we notice that, every time they do that, even if they don't have to go out, even if they just walk by it, we go let them outside. And same deal, we create that pattern then. But yeah, first step is you just make sure she doesn't go in the house, right? By letting her out very consistently. Second thing, pick your cue, whatever you want it to be. And regardless of if she needs to go or not, every time she does it, she goes outside.
So help me with the cue, because we're told you she's the attention.
Yes.
So if we're working on, if that's not necessarily acceptable unless, like, how do I rate, what's the?
Good question. So, putting her head on you is not inherently something wrong, right? Now, we're creating the pattern that putting her head on you doesn't get attention and petting, it gets going outside. So it hypothetically should not reinforce the attention side of things. You get what I'm saying? That being said, if you want to play it safe, which I probably would say, I would maybe try to pick something else, just pick something else. And just every time she does it, let her outside. You know? And also the thing is too, you haven't had her that long, right? Yeah, okay, just a little, 5 months, 6 months, whatever it is. The longer you have her and the longer you develop the pattern of going outside, what's gonna happen is you're gonna start to just pick up on the cues of when she needs to go, what she does. And a lot of times, like for my one dog, Vinny, he's the dog that I can just tell when he starts pacing around in a certain way, I just know. It's just like, that's his potty dance or whatever, So I just let him outside, right? So sometimes it's not even like you pick a conscious like cue that you want the dog to do. It's just you recognize the signs of what they generally do when they go to the bathroom, and that becomes their way of letting you know,
Because I mean, that's what we've been kind of doing.
Yeah.
Trying to distinguish between knocking my hand for attention or putting, like if she does that for a minute, it's like, okay, I said no, and then she keeps that there, I'm like,
you could add some beds into this now.
We have to go out for that.
Correct. Yeah, I wouldn't overthink the cue though. I think a lot of people get way too quick on like the dog needs to let me know, where it's like, it just kind of, that's one of those things I feel like just kind of happens organically, Right now, just like I said, make sure you're not putting her in a position where she's gonna go in the house,
Yeah, well, and like sometimes she goes longer than others.
Yeah.
She takes a little body language sometimes.
Sure.
Arm pointing, saying you're not coming in. But she's learning to go, even if it's not a lot.
Yes.
Right? Like, I don't care, you're going out, just go.
Yeah. So do you see on some of these repetitions how you're almost just applying the tiniest amount of pressure as your signal? That should be our goal now, is as you're working this with her, strive to use less and less pressure each time to get your point across. And you could always increase the pressure if you need to, but basically just the direction of me lifting that leash up will start to become the sit, or moving towards the bed or whatever it may be. So these next few, go ahead and try to do that where you use as little pressure as possible to get it. Yeah, beautiful. So we use the leash pressure obviously to shape the commands, but we want to hit a point where we get off of needing the leash pressure. And once we hit that point where consistently she's doing it like she's doing it now, where you almost need no leash pressure, that's when we know she's kind of understanding the expectation, and we could start to layer a verbal cue onto it. Yeah, perfect. I like it. Why don't you do 2 more of those, and I'm gonna have you guys switch.
Good.
Beautiful. All right, why don't you go ahead and release her off.
Okay.
And I'm gonna take the leash back from you. Thank you, and I'll take your treats from you. Thank you. All right, last thing we're gonna add in is we're gonna start putting some duration on these commands, so having her actually hold the position, and I'm also gonna start layering in a verbal command to this. So I'm gonna walk her over, Lucy bed. Good. Once she gets into position, I'm gonna reward for that. From there, I'm gonna try to create some distance. No. If she breaks command, I'll tell her no, help her back on. Create some distance again.
So I have a question.
No.
How do you do that without telling her to stay there?
Yep. I'll answer that in just a second here. Good. And then once she does well, I'll reward her for the duration. So yes, there's a very real possibility that if we trained like 8 years ago or so, okay, that we still used stay back then. Stay has kind of been phased out in the dog world. Stay is, if you look at it, one of the most redundant words in the dog training language, because look at it this way, right? We have a clear beginning to our command, bed, and we have a clear end to our command, okay. So since we have a beginning and end, why do we need something in the middle, right? The expectation is the command gets started and then the command gets ended, right? Bed.
The feeling that works okay when you're
Good.
putting her on something she's familiar with to stay on.
Yep.
But, in the yard.
Well, stay, we would never use as like an independent command either, right? Because if you look at it like, what's really the meaning behind it? Like, let's say you were just to say stay. Does she need to stay in a standing position? Does she need to stay in a sitting position? Can she lay down, right? Like, it almost muddies it even more. Come on. It almost muddies it even more because you don't know exactly what the expectation winds up being. Oh, is that what you're doing? You're hacking up treats? It almost muddies it more because the expectation is really gray then at that point. So it's like, how does she be totally successful with that? So like, let's say in a situation like that in the yard, if I needed to get her to stay somewhere, I would just use an actual command that has a more solid meaning behind it, right? So if I'm in the backyard with my dogs and whatever, I'm chopping wood for a fire or something, I'll just put them in a down somewhere, right? As opposed to say, stay in that vicinity, right? Okay. Bed. Good. You see how she's starting to finish the command on her own too. That's kind of what we want to start to see. And then again, we use the leash to then back up the command that it is we're asking. Good. Okay. A lot of this too, we're kind of feeling out like what a lot of her cues mean. So you'll notice like a couple times she's done this weird little like grumbly. Have you heard her do that a couple times just a minute ago?
Oh, when you were right here?
Yeah. So a couple of the times that she did it, it seemed like she was like hacking up a treat almost, like she ate it too fast, right? Those last couple times, it seemed a little bit more conscious of a thing that she was doing. But the thing is, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's anything bad yet. Like her body language isn't showing me she's like uncomfortable or that she's like really like trying to growl at me to get me to go away or anything like that. So what it could hypothetically mean is that she just really wants the treat. And there's plenty of dogs that will like woof or do things like that, obviously, to try to get the reward from you. But it is something that we're gonna wanna test a little bit, obviously, and kind of see ultimately what she does. Good. Next time what we'll try to do is, have you guys done any type of, I'm assuming you haven't, any type of like muzzle training with her or anything? Okay. So next time what we'll do is we'll kind of introduce one to her so that we could push the buttons a little bit in those situations and see ultimately what that's going to turn into, We'll keep today easy for her, but as we progress through these next few, we'll kind of highlight some of that stuff. Good. Good. Okay.
I have a long line too.
Yep. And try to make sure right when she makes that mistake, before you go back in and fix her, mark with no, then go back in and fix her. So we're going to start patterning in that word as well.
I heard a little.
Oh, did you hear it? Yeah. It very well could be just that she really wants the treat, but like I said,
I doubt it.
we'll test it. What do you mean?
What do you think?
Why not?
I'm telling you, that's where I'm not the best owner.
Sure.
Because like I want to yank on her and be like,
Yeah.
there is no way you are allowed to talk to me.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah. It just depends, you know, like the fact that she just did it to you actually makes me a little bit more leaning towards that it's probably just pertaining to the treats. Because I think if anybody, it seems like you are the most confident with her and she respects you pretty well, regarding him obviously, right? So I can't imagine that she's gonna feel that confident in this training session in a new place that she's gonna say, I'm gonna growl at my person over this, you know?
And I can't then notice it before.
Yeah.
But one of my kids said that she did it to one.
Yeah, that right there. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Like that almost looked like just talking to me, seeing it from the outside.
Yeah.
Like I said, we will test it. We absolutely are gonna test it and find out.
And my response was, if she's communicating with you, you have to respect it.
Sure.
Leave me alone.
Yeah, no, there's a give and take with all of it, right? Like obviously she can't be growling at us over everything, but as long as I know it's not gonna turn into anything, like even my dog Vinny, he's a crotchety old man at this point, and like if I like, I'm sure I did, yeah, I've had him for like almost 11 years now, yeah. But he is the dog, that same deal. If I like poke his buttons and mess with him a little too much, he'll give me a little growl and stuff every now and then. And it's like, I know he's not gonna attack me, right? Like but I also, like we have a mutual respect as far as those things are concerned. Yeah.
Are you full of tricks? Do you have too many of these things?
Yeah. I think she wants more is what it is.
You're gonna hurl them.
She doesn't like the little ones.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah, she said, give me bigger ones.
They're gonna be crumbs.
Yeah. Why don't you do 2 more of those?
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
You just tell her to leave it, and she'll, back off a little bit, but Pearl is a messy eater, Pearl spits some out. So she thinks I can get those on the floor.
Of course.
If Pearl put them there.
Yeah.
And Pearl's not done,
Uh-huh.
she'll clean them up, but, she loves food, whether it's hers or anybody else's. But we don't
Yeah.
give her any people food, because I can't imagine how she would then behave, or to a counter or something.
Sure. Okay, so today what I want to do is we are going to start getting her kind of used to wearing the muzzle a little bit. I want to kind of test some of the handling stuff like we talked about last time, see how she does with that, and then we'll do some basic e-collar introduction today as well. So let's do this. I'm going to have you go ahead and get this on her here. So this is going to go like that, and then this goes between her eyes, this strap right here.
Okay.
And then you'll just buckle that. Let me make it a little looser still. Then we could always tighten it up more. Why don't you try that? So like that. She said, what the heck?
What the hell is going on here?
Yeah.
Can't see the look on your face right now.
Yeah,
The disgruntled,
perfect.
The disgruntled employee.
All right, so I'll squeeze around here. I'll take this from you.
Okay.
All right, so what we're gonna do here is I'm gonna start off by just re-going through all the things we went over last time. I wanna make sure she's getting used to doing it with the muzzle on, and then I'll be obviously rewarding her. Good. When she does it correctly, just kind of getting her acclimated to this a bit. Almost. There you go.
She'll figure it out.
Okay, she sure will. And then once she does well with this, like I said, we'll add some more intimate stuff where I kind of get on her level, test, messing with her paws, her ears, all that kind of stuff. We'll just kind of see what we get. There you go, look at you. Okay. Good. You're doing pretty good. I'm actually surprised that she's doing as well with the muzzle as she is. A lot of dogs fight it quite a bit more when you first put it on. And you're doing pretty good. Okay. So like I said, I'm just gonna kind of hang out with her, handle her a little bit here. I want to see if there's anything that gets her, particularly agitated or anything like that. So. You can tell she's definitely a little nervous, tail's tucked a little bit, but.
Her tail's always,
Yeah.
she's not afraid to put my tail up.
Yeah.
Like a lot of days very careful.
Yeah.
Because their tails are crazy.
Yeah.
I haven't noticed that.
Some dogs just kind of like that.
Do you usually reach a point where a dog will say, that's enough?
Oh yeah, I mean, we have some dogs that get very aggressive over this. So, yeah. And even though she lets you guys do this, we see a lot of dogs that will let their owners do it, but with somebody new, they will not, you know?
Yeah.
Which is why she's actually doing better than I would have thought with this. Come on, scooch over. And I forgot, you probably told me this last time, but how has she been at the vet, if you've taken her there?
So the first time we took her to the vet, they sat on the floor with her.
Yeah.
And they literally had a hard time doing the exam because she was licking.
Oh, really? Yeah, yeah.
But I think that was still because she just wanted everybody to love her.
Yeah, sure.
And then I took her 1 or 2 times after that. She's had her teeth done. And I've never had a problem when I take her. She's
Yeah.
happy with the techs. I've had them squeeze her anal glands, or like she's
Yeah, yeah.
good. You know, and they take her out of the room for that. And
Yep.
they said no problems. You know, and when we dropped her off at the teeth, they were said she was good when, you know, that she wasn't with us and with anyone. I don't think. I think the problem was our house.
Yeah. No, this is pretty good, actually. What do you think? What do you think? You are so long. You're so
I'm
long.
honestly surprised she's still at all 4.
What I want to do here is we're going to get started on her down here next. Come on.
You said her down.
Her down command. Yep. So what I'm going to do here, obviously we've taught the leash pressure, meaning the sit. We're going to start teaching her, obviously, when she feels the pressure down, it means obviously that we want her to get into that down position. So what I'm going to do is just a little bit at a time, just take some of that tension so that she has to keep her head a little lower so it'll be more comfortable for her, obviously, to get into that down position. And then we're just going to kind of wait for a minute and allow her to situate herself into it. The second she gets into that down, when those elbows get on the ground, I'll release her out of it and give her a reward for it. And sometimes the first couple of these can take a minute or so as they figure it out. Well, yeah, because right now the word down is kind of irrelevant, right? Unless we have a way to back it up, we can't just be using a command kind of willy-nilly. So if you remember last time, we started by making sure we could physically get her into the positions that we wanted her to be in, whether it was the heel, whether it was the sit, whether it was the bed. Then at the end, we layered the verbal command into it at that point. Because if not, like I said, if I say down and she doesn't do it, it's like, well, what do I do then? You know, we have no way to be able to ensure we could get her there. And usually I'm pretty patient with them initially through the first couple of reps, because it is kind of a weird concept of like they're feeling pressure and we're asking them to do something submissive. So. Just thinking it through. So close. Okay. Good job. There you go. Here. She said, what the heck? She said, my brain hurts. Here, you want another one? That was pretty good. It's pretty good. All right, come on, let's go try it again. Okay. So again, each one a little bit faster.
I look at her and I wonder, is there a lot of thinking going on there or nothing?
Those couple little brain cells are working overdrive. Okay. Awesome, looks great. So downs is the newest thing to add to things. I do want you to start introducing the e-collar a little bit this week. You mentioned that she's a big barker out the window.
Yeah.
Okay, you could start using it to correct for some of that. And you're gonna have to kind of play around with it and find a level that's gonna work, right? But what you could do is have it on during the day. Whenever she starts barking out the window, tell her no, give a correction on the e-collar, and just like I said, figure out what level is gonna be perfect, where as soon as she feels it, she stops the barking, but it doesn't seem like it's like way too high or too low or anything.